Most trailer hits sound like this, or that, or this. You hear trailer hits and you think, yeah, that's trailer music. But to me, that's not what I want. That doesn't always work for film scores and TV cues and video game music. Not everybody wants trailer music in their project. But sometimes you need to create a massive hit, a massive orchestral hit in your music, your mock-up production, your cinematic moment. So how do you create a massive hit? Hi, my name is Dylan DeRosa, and I'm a professional composer for film, TV, video games, and YouTube, funny enough. And I started from micro indie projects and worked my way up. In this video, I'm going to show you how to build massive, big hits for your orchestral music that sound organic and cinematic to your project. And over time, you realize it's not just about throwing in the kitchen sink and turning up the volume so it's louder than everything else in your production. It's about understanding how each of these elements stack with each other, how they complement with each other, because that's how you build a massive, big hit. At least, that's what they say anyway. Building a massive, big hit is about layering elements. And I've come up with 5 steps, 5 layers to create a massive, big hit. Let's play an example that I wrote for Entourage Films that showcases exactly these big hits. Those are some big hits. Here's another example from another piece. So these examples are organic. They fit the mock-up production. They're not trailer hits, but they're big hits, and they accent moments. They create impact. Whether it's trailer hits or hybrid, orchestral, modern hits, it doesn't matter. It comes down to 2 elements. You have the transient and you have full spectrum. So what do I mean by this? So you have a transient spike, the peak of it. Let's say you have a snare drum or a percussion hit, or I'm just clapping. That accent is your transient. That's what you're hearing in big hits. We look at a EQ spectrum analyzer like FabFilter, and we see full spectrum. We've got lows, mids, and highs. This is what creates a massive big hit, is these 2 elements. It's plain and simple. Transient, full spectrum. But enough talking about it. Let's get into it. Let's build one. It's not as hard as you think. Our first layer is the sub foundation. In other words, the weight. This is what gives you that low end sub and impact. But let's start with this first example. It's the easiest, best way to showcase how to build this. We're going to use a great plugin, Musio. We're going to use Musio because it has everything we need. For this, in Musio, I found monster low hits, which, perfect, we're building a massive big hit. So this is what it sounds like. Good. You got some low end, you got that low end kind of sub punch, hits you in the chest, perfect. Now, important when it comes to these low end subs is you don't want it to ring forever. I messed with the release tail here and brought it down to about 700-800 milliseconds. I needed to cut off very quickly because you don't want your low subs to ring out forever. It will create so much mud and ruin your mix. You can let the highs ring longer, but the lows need to get out. This is your low end oomph, adding weight and foundation to your massive big hits. In other words, this is your 808 kick. You can use an 808 kick, and that's absolutely fine. Let's showcase an 808 kick in Musio. So you can use a monster low hit, you can use an 808 kick, you can use a cinematic sub hit. Musio even has a collision impact designer, which has great sub hits. Let's try out one of those. This works. We just have to remember our first layer is sub foundation. You're adding weight. You need some impact in the lows, and it needs to be short. So short release, not decaying for too long. That's our first layer. Layer 2. This is your low mid character. In other words, your grit. Add something percussive and ugly in the low mids to just give some tonal character to it. And a personal favorite of mine to add is piano clusters. So you might be thinking, well, I don't know how to do a piano cluster, or my library doesn't have clusters recorded. Piano clusters are easy. You just take your 5 fingers on the lowest keys of the piano, A, B, C, D, and E, all the white keys, and you just hit that. That's perfect. It's percussive, it's sharp, it's keeping with our transient, it's adding some grit in the low mids. That's it. That's layer 2. Let's move on. The next layer is the room transient. In other words, the smack. Use a percussive instrument, works every time. My favorite go-to is a bass drum. And you don't want a super dry one. This is where you want to create some space. So have one in a hall or stage something that sounds good and has some space to it. And my favorite patch that I still use in my main template actually comes from Cinepercussion, from Cinesamples, which is in Museo. So here it is, and the note specifically is C3 at a 127. Layer 4, the full spectrum texture. In other words, the wall of sound. My personal favorite patch to go to is full ensemble strings, Colegno. Colegno is perfect, it's percussive, it has that sharp transient that we're looking for, and it cuts through, but it gives that orchestral flavor. Now, Colegno is actually quite quiet in real life, but since we're in the digital world, we can have everybody play across the keyboard and we can make it as loud as we want and really cut through. And these massive big hits are just impact. They're not really meant to sustain, so the tonal pitch is less important to me. I just need it to impact, come in and out. So on the Colegno full ensemble strings, I just took from bottom C to C6 in the top, from C to E. Every note playing randomly, giving a massive big sound, but making sure it sounds a bit atonal, a nice dissonant spread. Perfect. And the last layer, layer number 5, is the metallic sheen, the gliss. You got your anvils, your break drums, your industrial hits, your metallic clangs, anything you can find. And similar to the low-mid character, adding that piano cluster, that's what we're doing in this high end. We're adding some character. Now this layer is totally optional. We already have a big hit layered by now, but I'm personally a fan of specifically anvils. So here's what the anvil sounds like in Museo from Cinepercussion. Let's play them all together. This is our big hit just with the 808 kick. Maybe we don't want to use the 808 kick. Maybe we liked the monster low hit we used on our first patch. Sounds good. Just a different low-end weight character to it. From the Collision Impact Designer, let's see what that sounds like. Relatively all the same, but you could see you just have some low-end weight, you have your low-mid character with piano clusters, you then have your bass drum schmack, then you have your full wall texture with your Colegno strings, and then you have just the sprinkles on top with that metallic clang, that sheen. And that's it. That's how you create a massive big hit. I want to showcase layering each one at a time. Let's stick with the 808 as we're layering our examples. Here's the 808 with the piano cluster. All right, here's with the bass drum. Here's with the Colegno strings. And finally with the anvil. So, now that you understand the layers and the foundations, experiment with them. Take it a step further. Once you understand how the layering works, now swap out the instruments. Just think about the same qualities of the sound. So if we're sticking with our first layer is the sub foundation, well, maybe instead of a 808 kick or some sub information, we get creative and we use a bass pizzicato. So I'm using Museo here in the set of strings core for the bass pizzicato. And this is what I did with the bass pizzicato. I first lower the release because we need a short release. Let's remember that. Then I just use Panbox, great little plugin. I'm just using it to mono. That's all. I'm just making things mono. We can just hear what that sounds like before. And I'm just monoing. Usually with our sub frequencies, we want them to be pretty centered. Then next, I'm using a standard Cubase plugin. I just wanted to show that you could use standard plugins as well. I'm using tube saturation, tube distortion, and I'm just cranking it. I'm trying to add some more harmonics and give it more character, add some more weight in those low subs. And with it off. And with it on. And then lastly, I'm just increasing the low subs around 76 hertz, and every time it increases, I have a quick release and a quick attack. So we want to come in and we want to come out really quickly. Step 2, we need some low-mid character. Let's do a woodwind cluster. This comes from Cinewind's low winds. This is what it used to be, the monster low winds. Pre-recorded clusters. Perfect. I don't need to play my own custom clusters. They have pre-recorded clusters. And this actually sounds better because it's multiple players. You're not faking it. This is what the woodwind clusters sound like. For the third one, we need now our schmack, but we need the space still. So I went with Cinepercussion again, and I chose a timpani this time. Now, this timpani was ringing too long, so I lowered the release. But then I felt like it was too dry. So here's what the release lowered. I added some more space to it by adding just Valhalla Vintage Reverb, roughly 30%, using a Hall. I'm just pushing it back slightly, giving it a little bit more space in my big hit. Our fourth layer, our full spectrum texture. So instead of colango strings, I thought let's use octabands, these kind of pitched little tiny percussions. Let's see what this sounds like. I mean, this sounds perfect. We can even take it a step further, and we could bounce this to audio, reduce this by 12, and give it a more lower full weight to it. Playing that with the original, just add some more weight to it, keeping with our full spectrum. And lastly, our last layer, I found True Strike and Museo, and we're using some trash and metal hits. And all together, that's our big hit. It's the same formula, different orchestration. It's a big hit. It's just creating these layers, stacking them up, and then you decide what character you want. So now let's take it one step further and let's use some sound design. I'm a big fan, as I mentioned before, using Boom Library and all their great wave files of pre-recorded sounds from nature or monster noises or just anything from door slammings to... That's what we're going to start with, actually, funny enough, is a door slam. Because a big hit kind of sounds like a door slam sometimes, and that's a perfect sound effect for what we're going to do. So I'm going to start with actually step 3, which is our big schmack, because we're going to use the door slam to create the sub foundation. So with our door slam, here's our door slam sound. I'm going to take the door slam. We're going to transpose it down by -24. We're going to add some little Ultra Boy, bring the pitch down even further, add some drive, some distortion to give some harmonics, some low information more. And just a little bit of Pro Q4, similar to the bass pits. We're just going to increase it on the low end, quick attack, quick release, so it comes in and out. So we use the same sample to create our sub information. This is what it sounds like. Together. Now, for step 2, I found a funny little sample from Boom Library is Gnome Vocal Attack Shout. So this is what it sounds like dry. Sounds funny. And we're going to use this as our low-mid character. So first, we're going to use Quadravox. This is a great little plugin. Honestly, I could duplicate the audio 3 times, having a total of 4, and just pan them left and right a little bit and detune them slightly, come in different timings. We're basically creating a choral effect with, harmony. Like, you're just creating a bunch of harmonies, and this is what the Quadravox is doing very quickly. This is what it sounds like. So then I add Decapitator, adding a little bit of distortion, adding just more character, more grit, and lastly, adding Valhalla Vintage Verb just for some space. Let's hear what all 3 layers sound like so far. Moving on for step 4, I found a ticking clock sound from Boom Library. This is very transient. It reminded me of the colango strings. This was perfect. So what I did here is use Little Ultra Boy to first pitch it up by 12 and form it up by 12. I'm really trying to transform the sound, make it original to my unique sound design. Let's hear first what the ticking clock sounds like alone. And with the Ultra Boy. Then I add in the Quadravox. Again, same thing. I'm just creating this kind of choral harmony effect. Then I'm adding ROM just for more high-end space. Remember, we can let the highs ring out longer. We want the subs to die quicker. Then what I did was just similar to the Octoband example. I duplicated the track and just transposed it lower to add a little bit more weight. Remember, this 4th layer, we want that full spectrum. For our last layer, I found a toy trumpet from Boom Library. It sounds pretty wild. Let's hear it dry. Sounds very cool. So I took this example and just made it short enough, added a little Ultra Boy, brought the pitch up by 10, form it up by 12, a little bit of drive distortion, mix knob, same ordeals. This is what the little Ultra Boy sounds like enabled. Really sounds like it was kind of like sped up really high, but remember, this is just metallic. This is just character up in the top end. And lastly, ROM, just adding some space. And let's play them all together. And if you want to add a little bit more fun, throw in some delays on the top end, maybe your full spectrum or your metallic sheen, just to give it a little bit more chaotic character to the decay of the sound. So hopefully you understand now that building these massive big hits, these massive orchestral hits that go with your production is just about understanding the 5 layers. 1, sub foundation. 2, low mid character. 3, your room transient. 4, your full spectrum texture. And 5, your metallic sheen. Once you understand how the layers stack upon each other, it's infinite possibilities. What comes next? Well, just try changing out samples like I did in this video to showcase, or just stick with the first one. That one works. Go ahead and take exactly that and use it in your productions. Then mix it. Do whatever you want, whatever sounds good to your ear. Maybe even add some side chaining to your big hits on the rest of your production, just lowering it a couple decibels at most. And so every time your big hit comes in, it impacts. It really feels like it cuts through, because that's exactly what I do, and it works. But this is all fun stuff we could talk about later in a future video. The point of this video is to show you how quickly you can create these massive big hits and create your own sonic signatures for your project. Hey, if you made it this far, thank you so much. I hope this formula and the idea of layering these 5 layers is really not that mystical anymore, and you can create massive big hits for your project and create your own sonic signatures. And if you want to see more videos about mockup production, film scoring, writing techniques, sound design, and how this business actually works, then stick around, subscribe, like these videos, and stay tuned for the next one. And if you want to check out more now, check up in that corner there, and I'll see you next time. Well, I want to actually see you because I'm talking to a camera, but you get my point.